The 2024 season just ended, but it's never too early to look ahead. These are my way too early record predictions for each SEC team for the 2025 college football season. Hello, everyone. I'm Chris Phillips of SEC Unfiltered. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. Make sure you like, subscribe, turn notifications. Check us out via podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. You can also find us across all social media platforms as well as our website, secunfiltered.com. This segment brought to you by our friends over at GameTime. Download the GameTime app and use promo code SECU for $20 off your first purchase. Again, guys, that's our friends at GameTime. Promo code SECU to get $20 off today. The 2024 season just ended for the SEC, but it is never too early to look ahead. That's exactly what we're going to do today. These are my way too early record predictions for each and every single team in the SEC for the upcoming 2025 college football season. As we pull up each of my projections, let's start with Vanderbilt. We'll go backwards. Instead of going Bama down to Vandy, we'll start at Vandy and work our way up. We'll go with the Vanderbilt Commodores first, guys. I've got Vanderbilt at 6-6. And by the way, let me say this, a quick disclaimer before I go any further. These predictions are subject to change. I cannot stress that enough. I will drop my official game-by-game record predictions sometime this summer, sometime before toe meets leather on the 2025 season. But these are exactly what they're labeled as. Way too early. Not only are they subject to change, I would guarantee you that some of these, many of these, are going to change. Even if it's only by a couple games, maybe it's by more than a few games. They're going to change those. So again, I cannot stress that enough. These rosters are going to change. Coaching staffs will probably change. I'll probably just change my mind on some of these teams, depending on schedules, who they play, what have you. But for right now, these are my way too early record predictions. So again, cannot stress that enough. We go back to it. Vanderbilt, I've got it 6-6. I believe in Diego Pavia. How does Vandy follow up, obviously, what they did in 2024 being one of the best stories in college football? I think when you got Pavia, you got a chance. And guys, let's all keep in mind, by the way, for every single one of these teams, all the schedules are just flipped. I mean, really, it's essentially everybody's playing the same schedule, but who you played at home and on the road in the SEC, just flip that. It's the opposite in 2025. So I think Vanderbilt, will they be able to go into Tuscaloosa and make it 2 in a row against Alabama? I doubt it. You're going to have Auburn coming to Nashville, obviously. But again, I do think Diego Pavia, they're able to build off what they did in 2024. There are certainly some questions, but Stowers is back as well. Jerry Kill is back, the OC. What do they look like defensively is my big question, but I believe in Diego Pavia. He gets the doors back to a bowl game at 6-6. Guys, Texas A&M. I got the Aggies going 8-4. I mean, listen, this is who Texas A&M is, right? Until we see differently, A&M in my mind is not deserving of being picked or even thought of as some double-digit win per year team. You're going to have those people, right? The hype train is going to be crazy when it comes to Texas A&M. We all know that. We've come to expect that. Until I see differently, guys, I think Texas A&M is a 7 or 8 win per year program. That's not a bad place to be either, but it's just kind of where I see A&M right now. So 8-4, and I'm not one here to promote the jokes or make the jokes, but there's a reason they call them Texas 8-4, because they find a way to do that every single year. Now, again, maybe I'll be higher on A&M once toe meets leather, but I got to see it before I believe it and think of A&M as some double-digit win per year team. So right now, 8-4 for the Aggies. Texas, I've got 11-1. Yes, they're losing a lot, but you've got Arch Manning leading the way. I do think Texas, all due respect to Quinn Ewers, I think they're going to upgrade at quarterback. They're still going to have a lot back defensively. And guys, let's call it for what it is. Unless we see something different, it's the same schedule, but the home and away is flipped. I think you got to really, really like the way it sets up for you in 2025. I think you do. Now, the big one is the season opener at Ohio State. That's a big one, right? And, of course, you have to travel to Athens to take on the Georgia Bulldogs. So could Texas lose another game? Sure. But I think this is going to be another season for Texas where I think the floor is going to be really, really high because you're still extremely talented and your schedule is conducive to a big year yet again. So right now, I'm a believer in Arch Manning. I'm still a believer in Texas, Steve Sarkisian. they're going to be just fine, even with the pieces they're losing. 11-1 right now for the Longhorns. Guys, we go to Tennessee. The Vols, I've got them double-digit winners yet again. 10-2 in my way too early record projections. This is one, guys, yet again, the schedule sets up for a big year for Josh Heupel and company. I mean, really, guys, it's a schedule. If you go look at it, could I see Tennessee falling to 9-3? Sure. I think they're going to be yet again college football playoff contenders right on the bubble. The big things, you just extended Tim Banks. What does that look like defensively, losing some of those key pieces led by James Pierce? Obviously, you're going to have to reload there. I mean, offensively, guys, you got Nico back, right? You'll have to replace Dylan Sampson. That's a big one. You'll have to replace some guys in the offensive line. Can the wide receiver position be worse than it was in 2024? I doubt it, right? I like some of the things Tennessee's done in the portal. Nico's got to take the step forward. So Tennessee's going to be a fascinating team. But right now, which again, all subject to change, right now I've got Tennessee at 10-2. I like where they're at. I like Nico. I think Nico's going to be much, much better in 2025. One of the SEC's best quarterbacks, 10-2 for the Vols, and a return to the college football playoff. South Carolina, I've got it 7-5 right now. I know it is a step back from the 9-3 or 9-4 season with the bowl game included they just had. I would say this about South Carolina. Yes, you have Dylan Stewart coming back defensively, but you are losing a ton on the defensive side. And I think losing Rocket Sanders at running back is going to be a much, much bigger deal than South Carolina folks are going to want to admit. I mean, look at him in the bowl game. Guys, 3 trips to the red zone, 3 points. You could not score in the red zone because you did not have your big back and Rocket Sanders. I still have questions about the wide receiver position. I do think there's some guys in that room that probably should take a step forward. Nick Harbour is obviously back. And, of course, you have your man, your trigger man, in Lenora Sellers. So could South Carolina finish a little bit better than this? Again, you flip the schedule, so you think about it. You're going to get Alabama at home. You got to travel to Ole Miss. You got a really interesting non-conference opener against Virginia Tech. And, guys, I'm just going to say it. If you've been watching South Carolina football long enough, man, I'm just not convinced that they're going to build off that 9-win season and we should be talking about South Carolina as some college football playoff favorite. I'm not there yet. I think 7-5 would be – it won't be the year that Gamecock fans are hoping for and expecting because the hype train is going to be through the roof. But it's where I see South Carolina right now. Also, Clemson comes to South Carolina. That could be a tricky game at the end of the year. So you book in your season with ACC foes. Schedule's pretty difficult for the Gamecocks. I think 7-5. Again, could they finish a game or two better? Sure. But I'm not on the South Carolina's going to the college football playoff in 2025 hype train quite yet. Let's go to the Ole Miss Rebels. Guys, I got Ole Miss at 9-3. I think Ole Miss, I know Jackson Dart and Trey Harris, they're trying to get another year eligibility. Realistically, they're gone. Austin Simmons takes over quarterback. Guys, I'm really, really high on Austin Simmons. After seeing him in person, what he did against Georgia, I think the offense is going to be just fine. I think they're going to hum. And again, guys, they've got a schedule, like I mentioned, because it's the same schedule as this past year, but flipped. They've got a schedule conducive to a pretty big year. So I've got Ole Miss right on the outside of the college football playoff right now, of course, 9-3. They're going to play great offense. I mean, defensively, I think is where the questions come because you lose so much. But, Ole Miss, yet again, guys, is cleaning up in the transfer portal. So I don't think the Rebels are going anywhere anytime soon. I got Ole Miss winning 9 games, going 9-3. Guys, the Oklahoma Sooners, I got Oklahoma at 6-6. And listen, this is one that could certainly change because we're going to learn a lot more about this Oklahoma roster as we go through spring ball, the summer. John Mateer at quarterback, Ben Arbuckle as OC. What does that look like? But, guys, I got to be honest, even with John Mateer, I think Oklahoma is just – they feel like they're light years away to me. Now you lose a lot defensively, right? You lose Billy Bowman. You lose Danny Stutzman. The schedule's still a gauntlet if you look at OU's schedule in 2025. So you might be better offensively but worse defensively. So I just – and, listen, is 6-6 for Oklahoma? Does it get Brent Venables fired? I don't know. It might. I don't think those folks have a lot of patience down there, and they ain't used to losing. They ain't used to losing like this. So I just, guys, again, watching Oklahoma, they feel so much further than a quarterback away to me. They may finish a game or two better than this, but as far as like competing for a playoff, I just think they are light years away. So I got 6-6 right now, and what that would mean for Brent Venables' fate would be really interesting to say the least. Guys, the Missouri Tigers, I got Mizzou at 8-4. Yet again, schedule sets up really well for them. You've got the new quarterback coming in from Penn State that is going to be the lead signal caller and be the guy. I think Mizzou, yet again, is going to be a solid team. I probably won't be as high on them as I was going into the 2024 season. You got to replace a lot. Obviously, you lose Brady Cook, lose Luther Burden. I think you've got one of the two back when it comes to that running back duo. Defensively, you should be pretty good. Second year with Batoon, your defensive coordinator. 8-4 for Mizzou. That just feels right for what Missouri is going to be in the 2025 season. 8-4 for the Tigers. Guys, let's go Mississippi State. I've got Mississippi State at 3-9. 3-9 for the Bulldogs. You got to face off against Arizona State again. That's probably a loss in non-conference. You guys, look at their schedule. Tell me where the SEC win comes from. I just, again, this is another team. Mississippi State is light years away from, I think, even being competitive in the SEC. It wouldn't surprise me if they pulled an upset. That wouldn't totally shock me. But I just think this – and I'm a believer in Jeff Lebby, man. I love State. I love the Dogs. But I think this is a long-term rebuild and a long-term overhaul and start. But I will say this. Mississippi State, very impressive portal haul. We'll see how much of a difference it can make. Can they flip this thing around in 1 year? The LSU Tigers, guys, I've got them at 9-3. And I would say this again, like I said, records are subject to change. I feel like I'm a little bit higher on LSU than even the record I've published here, if that makes any sense at all. Right now, I got the Bayou Bengals at 9-3. I'm really, really giddy about what Garrett Nussmeier can be this season. I think he might be the best quarterback returning in the SEC in 2025. I think certainly the ceiling is the highest of any quarterback. I think if he plays to his full potential, he's one of the best quarterbacks in the country, not just the conference. But I think LSU is going to be a fringe playoff team yet again, and it's really going to come down to quarterback play. I know that sounds oversimplifying it, but I mean, I think it's going to come down to quarterback play. You got Harold Perkins back on the defensive side, second year under Blake Baker. They should be really, really good there. You got to travel to Tuscaloosa. You got to travel to Oxford. It's a pretty difficult schedule. You got Arkansas at home. It's a pretty difficult schedule, but I do think LSU going to be right there in playoff contention right now. I got them 9-3. The Kentucky Wildcats, I've got at 5-7. And even just me saying this out loud, this almost feels a little too generous with the state of the Kentucky football program, where they're at. I mean, guys, it's the Mark Stoops era. It feels like we're this close. If we haven't already done so, we're this close to the Mark Stoops era, just completely derailing, going off the rails there in Lexington. What is Kentucky football at this point? What are they? Do they still have some life in them in the program where they can get back to being that 8-4, 9-3, maybe even a 10-2 Kentucky? Or are we back to Kentucky football being what we have known Kentucky football to be for quite some time? 5-7 is where I got them right now. The Georgia Bulldogs, I've got it 10-2. I don't think the Dogs are going anywhere anytime soon. They got a tough schedule, though. I mean, again, you got to host Alabama. You got to go, host Alabama, host Texas. The home slate in Athens is going to be electric. It's an electric home slate. But you got a lot of questions. Brand new quarterback in Gunnar Stockton, obviously. They've revamped the wide receiver position, so he's going to have guys to throw to. But can Georgia get back to being Georgia? I just think there were some things we saw this year where it was almost like some chinks in the armor, some things that were really uncharacteristic when you think about Georgia football and what they typically are. I got Dogs 10-2. They're going to be right there in the college football playoff yet again. I would almost bank on them being in the playoff, but losing multiple games yet again. I think 10-2 feels right for Georgia right now. The Florida Gators, led by DJ Lagway, Billy Napier. I got Florida at 8-4. I think Florida's going to be solid. They could finish even better than this. I really believe that. I'm really high again on DJ Lagway. Huge year for Billy Napier yet again, and we're going to be having a lot of the same conversations when it comes to Billy Napier that we did last year. How important is the Miami game in non-conference? That'll be a big-time game. You got to go to Miami, which – from an atmosphere standpoint, it's not like that's going to be the toughest road game you play, although I think Miami fans will probably show up for that one. But I think with DJ Lagway, I think with a stingy defense, Florida should be a good football team. And I think what's interesting for them, I should have mentioned this when talking Tennessee, what's interesting for Florida, how about that game with Tennessee now being at the end of the season instead of the beginning? So that'll be a big game for both sides. Florida 8-4, though, where I got them right now. The Auburn Tigers, I've got it 7-5. This is one with Auburn, man, I just don't know what to think. I think Auburn will finish 7-5, and it'll be another year where we're like, well, they went 7-5, but damn, this team should have won 9 games. Kind of like what we saw from Auburn this past year. Went 5-7, and you were just like, man, that team should have went at least 7-5 or 8-4. Until Hugh Freeze shows me differently, that's kind of how I feel about the Tigers right now. I mean, Jackson Arnold, I think he could be a really good player in that system. You got maybe the best returning wide receiver in the conference and Cam Coleman back. Like, you got dudes. You got weapons. There is no excuse. And you're recruiting well. There's no excuse for Auburn not to win and not have a big 2025. Again, Hugh Freeze on one of the hottest seats in college football entering this season. I don't know. Is 7-5 good enough to bring Hugh Freeze back in 2026? I don't know. I think so, but I don't know. I think it really depends on how it looks and how that 7-5 plays out. So, also, too, guys, I should have mentioned, because we had no movement with coaches, obviously, after this year. Mark Stoops for Kentucky. That might be another one where you're talking about maybe we're seeing some change in Lexington. Also, too, I'll go back to Mississippi State. I think Jeff Levy's fine. I think they realize in Starkville it's a long-term rebuild. So I know I didn't touch on those. But Auburn, Hugh Freeze, where are we at with him? I don't know. I don't know if 7-5 gets him back. Speaking of another coach who's on the hot seat, let's go to Arkansas. I've got the Razorbacks at 6-6, and I do think that would spell the end of the Sam Pittman era in Fayetteville. I think obviously a lot of these coaches, a lot of these programs, I should say, held back on firing or hiring because of the revenue sharing that's coming this summer. What does that mean? You know, how does it divvy the money up, whatever. But guys, death taxes and the Hogs going 500. I just think the Hogs under Sam Pittman are what they are. And I honestly, at this point, feel for Arkansas fans, because it is really, really tough to be a Hog right now and to find any optimism when it comes to the Hogs. But I just think you are what you are right now, Arkansas. I think you're 6-6. I think you're going to be yet again really volatile, really inconsistent. I think Arkansas will probably pull some big upset, if you will. There's going to be some upset. Dude, whoever makes Arkansas' schedule, why are you playing Notre Dame? I mean, my goodness. Can we give the Hogs a break? You don't have Okie State anymore, but now you got Notre Dame, who might be the reigning national champion. So you got to take on the Fighting Irish. The SEC schedule's brutal as always. And again, with Talon Green, Bobby Petrino, I think Arkansas at times is going to be a really, really fun football team to watch. But they're just going to be 500 again. And I think it'll be the end of the Sam Pittman era finally in Fayetteville. And guys, finally, the Alabama Crimson Tide. How will Alabama fare in year 2 of Kalen DeBoer? I've got the Crimson Tide at 10-2. I've got Bama punching their ticket, getting in the college football playoff again right now, subject to change. But I've got them at 10-2, punching the ticket to the college football playoff. Here's the thing, guys. There's so many out there that love to clown Alabama and troll them, and I totally get it. And this is a huge year for Kalen DeBoer. Unless they went like 6-6, I don't see Kalen DeBoer getting fired. I think that's going to be a storyline or a narrative that really catches fire this offseason, and people are going to run with that. I don't think there's going to be real legitimacy behind it. But there's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of pressure on Kalen DeBoer this year, no doubt. But, guys, you look at their roster, what they've got returning on both sides of the football. I mean, guys, really, and you hate to simplify it to one player, but if Ty Simpson clicks at quarterback, Bama's going to be really good. Like, I think they could win the SEC good. Like, that's how good I think that roster is. So, it'll all come down to Ty Simpson. If he clicks, I think that team will click. But I do think Alabama, again, going to be right there on the verge, knocking on the door of the college football playoff. And I've got them in based off my way too early record predictions at 10-2. So, guys, do you agree with me? Do you disagree? What are your way too early record predictions for each SEC team for the upcoming 2025 college football season? Guys, that's going to do all for me. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. Again, make sure you like, subscribe, turn on notifications. Check us out via podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. You can also find us across all social media platforms, as well as our website, secunfiltered.com. Until next time, guys, I'm Chris Phillips of SEC Unfiltered. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in, and we will catch you on the other side.